hey, these behaviors and these patterns, these habits that you're demonstrating are actually warning signs for those that are observing you. And we would rather replace those warning signs with being an example of what does it mean to be an impact-driven thought leader in your industry that has a purpose, that has a desire, that wants to be a force for good while you're actually here. So welcome back to the Better Than Rich Show. I am your host today, Mike Abramowitz, and this is a solo podcast episode with a unique topic that kind of came through a meditation practice this morning. I didn't anticipate doing this today, but I felt compelled to do so. For those of you that might know or might not know, we just welcomed our daughter, Ella, into the world this last week. And Ella Jade Abramowitz is now officially 8 days old, 9 days old. She's doing fantastic. My wife Lindsay's doing great. And we were just so honored and blessed to be at this chapter. It's been quite the journey for those of you that have been following along. My wife and I started the IVF journey back in 2018 due to male factor and thousands and thousands of injections that she's had to go through. So many doctor's appointments. Hundreds and hundreds of days inside of a hospital. We were in the NICU with James for 254 days, so eight and a half months. We had a stillbirth with Hannah at 20 weeks. We had a miscarriage, and we also had a failed embryo transfer, which would have been Jack. So just a lot of demise, a lot of challenge to get to where, James is now free of medical complexities. He's thriving and doing amazing. And then Ella is born healthy, and she's tiny little baby. She's so cute. Weighing in right now, she's just under 6 pounds, born at 5 pounds, 11 ounces. Just super grateful for where we're at right now in our family journey. Just felt compelled to share that. And this morning, when I went to the gym, I was in the sauna and I put on my Heart Journey Spotify playlist that I usually do when I'm doing a meditation or working with my somatic breath coach. But I chose to listen to it this morning. And in that meditation in the sauna, I was in there for about 30 minutes, which tells you I was in a pretty deep meditation because usually I can only last maybe 15 to 20 at most, but I was in there for 30. A topic that was coming through my mind was if I died tomorrow, and this idea of if I did die tomorrow, not that I'm hoping I don't, but if I did, what would I want to leave Ella and James? What would I want to make sure that my children knew not only about me, but just was able to receive from me? And if I get emotional, that's just what it is. It's I could feel it stirring up a little bit already, but I feel compelled to share this because it's on my heart and it's on my mind right now. And I wanted to capture it. I usually would do this in a journal entry, but I felt compelled to share it in a video and a recording for this podcast. So what would I want, and this is unfiltered, what would I want Ella and James to know? A couple of things. I would want them to know that the obvious ones, that I love them, that their dad loved them, that their journey to get to be alive, for them to get to life was a giant battle that my wife and I, as partners in this journey together, was a choice. Like, we worked really, really hard and chose to work really hard to make sure that they were able to have life. And I want them to know that because their parents consciously chose and worked really hard to give them life, I would want them to use this gift of life and allow them to make choices that could allow them to use this life to be a force for good for themselves and others. I would want them to know that as they're young and as they're within their innocence, and being so young is to allow an environment and space for them to be it's okay being bored. Like, I want them to know, like, it's okay being bored. Uh, and, and there's this positive boredom that could take place for them where they don't need to be distracted or entertained all the time. I would want them to know that if you feel like you're bored, it's like sitting in that boredom as as a kid, as a teenager, as an adolescent. It's like on the other end of that boredom, something might come through for you, and just allow yourself to have the space to experience that. Allow yourself to just sit there and not just fill in time with, a meaningless distraction like a game or like a toy or like a TV show or a video. It's like, I would want them to just sit there and wait for some sort of inspiration to happen. And once that inspiration happens, maybe it is to start playing an instrument. Maybe it is to draw. Maybe maybe it's to go outside and go into nature. Maybe it's to go for a walk. Maybe it's to exercise. Maybe it's to read. Maybe it's to learn. There might be something there other than just. And it's okay if it's just to play. Like, you want to go play, like that's on the other end. Playfulness is great. But what would it be like more of a meaningless distraction for you? Again, if I'm speaking to Ella and James right now, a meaningless distraction would be something to just like pass the time, just to be entertained, to be numbed by something, to avoid the boredom. That could, again, this is where like social media or technology, really anything related to technology, I would say, is probably the meaningless distraction, unless it's to learn something new. Entertainment is really great, but I wouldn't use entertainment to mask the feeling of boredom, because what I have found is, by masking the pain of boredom for myself in my life, it robs me of tapping into the creativity that I as the gift that I was given to live, and also robs me of the feelings that I'm meant to feel. See, that's the beautiful part about living. Being alive means I get to feel. I also want my children to know that I did a ceremony that allowed me to experience what I would feel as if would be the closest to death that one could feel. It was, for me, it was pure bliss. It was pure bliss. It was just love. There was no human form. There was no words. There was no people. There was no places. There was nothing. It was just these beautiful, just one feeling. It was just a feeling of love. That was it. Pure love was the only feeling. And from that place, there was this giant, massive desire to feel human touch, to feel a breeze, to see a tree, to experience laughter, to even experience impatience. Like, I wanted to feel anything, just to know that I'm alive. And with experiencing that emotional depth of what unconditional love felt like, there's this spectrum of emotion that I wasn't able to experience while in that journey. That all I wanted to do was experience life. And I think that I would want Ella and James to know that having a life, it gives us the ability to choose. And on that choice, we can choose the emotions that we want to feel by the environments that we're positioning ourselves to be in. I also know that some kids are raised in an environment in abusive households. They might be the recipient of really just unjustifiable actions from other humans. And I would want my children to know that those kids, those innocent little kids, are victims of their environment. And sometimes those little kids grow up to be really angry, really upset, really sad, really hurt individuals. And it's actually not their fault. They were the recipients of somebody else's rage, somebody else's anger, somebody else's numbing of their pain. And because they're so innocent and young and fragile, and that's their only lens of the world, they don't know anything different unless a teacher comes along or a mentor comes along or a friend comes along to help create a safe environment where they don't have to be guarded or protecting themselves. And I would invite Ella and James to be that person for these hurt individuals, because they were raised in a loving environment with parents that chose and worked really hard to bring them into this world, that I would want them to take that gift that they were given and be able to provide this sacred space for hurt people, whatever that means. If that means starting a business to help these hurt people, or to get into an occupation or a career that helps these hurt people, or if it means to just be a part of a passion project or volunteering to help these hurt people, to help them feel seen, to help them feel understood and safe, and to help almost rework and reparent. I would say that's the word choice. It's like to reparent these individuals, or at least creating environments where reparenting can happen, can exist. If a little boy or a little girl has temper tantrums, that's natural. But sometimes how a parent might parent a temper tantrum might be through like some sort of verbal or physical or emotional abuse. And I would want my kids to know that's not the little kid's doing. So if that little kid is a bully, more than likely that bully is projecting some sort of pain that they're experiencing in their home life. And we want to see beyond that. So these are things that I would want them to know, that you can offer gifts to humanity because of who your parents were. I think that's important. I would want them to feel unconditional love, and I would also want them to feel an immense amount of challenge and growth. I want them to be challenged. So I would want you to do hard things. I want you to understand that an Abramowitz doesn't quit. Like, we don't start something and then just stop because it gets tough. You finish out whatever the commitment is. So therefore, it's important before we start something is to honor the commitment. So that means we need to know what that commitment is. What are we committing to? And making sure that is explicitly clear before starting something. So if you're going to start a sport, or you're going to start dance, or you're going to start a new talent, or a gift that you have, or learning an instrument, it's like, cool, if we're going to learn this, we're going to start this. What is the commitment? Is it a time frame? Yes, I'm going to do this for at least 90 days, or I'm going to do this for at least 12 months, or I'm going to do this until I hit a belt. If it's karate or taekwondo, I'm going to do this until. What is the until? What is the commitment? And we document it. We put it on a wall. We put it somewhere that's visual. Say, this is my commitment. My commitment is this. And I would invite you to say why. Why are you committed to that? Why are you starting this? What is it that you're out to get or learn or achieve? Or like, what's the purpose behind this? So this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. And then when you're anchored to that, I don't care if you're 5 years old, I want you to be anchored to the commitment and follow through on that. And once that commitment is done, we can reevaluate. Okay, let's reevaluate. Do you want to continue to the next to the next level? Yes. Great. What is that next commitment? No sweat. Kudos to you. High five. Let's celebrate for fulfilling the commitment. And then let's figure out what the next thing is. That is what I would really encourage and want. I want challenge. I want growth. I want you to feel pain. I think pain is important. I think on the other end of discomfort, on the other end of that pain are valuable lessons. And that's that intentional growth. Intentional growth happens when you choose the growth, because that intentional growth was what will prepare you for the circumstantial growth that we might not ever be able to prepare for. That's a disaster. That's a death. That's some sort of circumstance that's outside of your control. That's a disease. Any of those types of Ds, a lot of those are out of your control. So by going through the intentional growth and the pains and the challenges and taking them head on and choosing growth and choosing challenge, when life gives us those circumstantial challenges, you'll be equipped, you'll be prepared, you'll be allowed, you'll have permission to be a leader. You don't have to be. I don't want to enforce you to be a leader, because the world needs really good followers too. But at least you could be positioned emotionally and spiritually connected to the opportunity to be a leader if you wanted to. And I think that's a beautiful lesson that I've learned, that I would love to make sure that they would learn as well. I tried to come up with an analogy for Ella and James, for myself, of what it means to be alive and what happens in the afterlife. And I don't know the answers here, but an analogy that I would want to share with them is that if the human body, again, I don't know answers, and I don't know if I 100% believe this, but this is what came through in my meditation, that if the human body is almost like a computer, and the computer, or like a device, like a computer, maybe it's a phone or whatever, but we'll call it a device like a computer or a phone, and you create all these documents and you videos and all these things that you use this computer for. And once that computer dies or breaks, that phone breaks or dies, what do you need to do? You need to go buy a new one and upgrade to a new computer or a new device. Well, what happens is everything that was on that device died. However, anything that was stored in like the cloud will be able to stay and transfer to the new device. And even though this new device has no memory at all, it's brand new, it's a baby, anything that was stored into the cloud, this device can pull from and reboot itself from some of those cloud storages, that content pieces, whatever was stored in the cloud for this new device. And the analogy there is almost like the body that we have is like that device. And when this body dies, anything that was not stored in the cloud dies with the body. However, everything that was stored into the cloud will be transferred to whatever new body that this energy goes into. And no one really knows the answer to what happens to that energy. But assuming if that energy is transferred to another body, if that's the case, then the cloud storage will also transfer to that new body, but there's going to be no memory. So like if my cloud storage was living 200 years ago, I don't have any memory. This body called Mike doesn't have any memory of that 200 years ago, but the cloud storage, let's call that cloud storage intuition. Let's call that cloud storage trust or compassion. Those cloud storages were able to come into this vessel. I don't have any memory of the previous vessel, but those I was ingrained with is a way of saying that. And also the other parts of that spectrum that might be in the cloud might be like revenge might be one of those. Maybe it's indifference or hatred. And if that's what was in the cloud and that's what's transferred to the new vessel, and somebody is born into an environment. So let's say the cloud storage is intuition, trust, and compassion, but they're raised in an environment and parented by someone with anger and addictions and everything. What happens is, even if they have that cloud storage, they might not be able to tap into the intuition and the trust and the compassion. So they grow up until like a mentor or a teacher draws that back out of them. Or if they're raised in an environment with love and compassion and beautiful upbringing, but this cloud storage is revenge and hatred, and they're just angry for like no reason, even though they're raised in a loving environment. Again, a parent or a mentor or a teacher is to reframe and to draw out or to create paradigm shifts for this young individual, so that way they could rewrite that potential cloud storage when in this body, in this computer, in this device. So that way, when that energy is moved into the next device, there's a reframe. It's either leveling up and strengthening the intuition, or it's replacing and reworking that hatred or revenge, as this example. Why is that significant to me right now? is because I want to make sure that I'm strengthening as much of that trust and intuition and compassion inside of myself. So that way it is felt beyond me. I choose to be a business owner and use my business as a vehicle to help create an environment where my talented staff can become better versions of themselves by identifying who their authentic self is, by being creative, by trying new things, by learning new things. I want to help them as much as possible use the business that I have created for them to become better versions of themselves so they can bring that to their families and their communities and their passions and their interests. And I also want to make sure that the clients that we serve also are fed they're fed information and knowledge, and they're fed an environment. They're created an environment where they learn new things that can help them unlock their genius, be able to take away some of the distractions that maybe and remove some of the distractions that pull them away from the things that matter most to them. Especially a business owner that says, my family's number one, but yet they're constantly interrupting their family time by answering phone calls or checking emails or being on their technology consistently or on social media. It's like, oh, I need to get this done. One more thing. It's like, there's this compromise and there's this cost behind that, because that business owner is also teaching in that moment to their kids what is acceptable, what is tolerable, what is allowed, because these little kids are observing everything. And that's why I love serving this demographic and this audience of busy family people. They have a family, they have kids, they have observers, grandchildren, individuals watching them and being an example for them versus being a warning for them. And I want to help them take the warning signs of, hey, these behaviors and these patterns, these habits that you're demonstrating are actually warning signs for those that are observing you. And we would rather replace those warning signs with being an example of what does it mean to be an impact-driven thought leader in your industry that has a purpose, that has a desire, that wants to be a force for good while you're actually here. What I'm realizing in this rant is that we have I've realized this, but it's coming from this place that we have a finite amount of time here in this body and on planet Earth. And with that finite amount of time that we have, let's call it 80 years, 100 years, let's call it 100 years. In the grand scheme of 100 years, yeah, that's like a lot of time if you think about it. And it's a very insignificant amount of time on how long like the human species have actually been alive. And what is the type of impact that we want to have on our 100 years while we're here? I don't know about you, but I do not know who my grandfather's grandfather was. So if we think about who that is, my grandfather's grandfather, so it's my grandfather, then his dad would be my great grandfather, and then his grandfather would be my great great grandfather. I do not know anything about that person. So my grandfather's grandfather, I know nothing about that person. So therefore, if we think about James, who's my son, his grandfather is my dad, let's say. And so his grandfather's grandfather, so that would be my dad's grandfather. I am not in a position to be able to educate James about my dad's grandfather. So therefore, I'm the bottleneck of that man's legacy to continue inside of our family, in our family name of an Abramowitz, unless I go get educated on who the heck my dad's grandfather was and be able to tell the stories of what our family tree is. What is it that man did? What are the stories of his life? Not even did. What are the stories of his life? If we had to take his life and put it into several stories, what are those stories? So what I want to make sure that I can do, not only to be remembered, but to take those stories. Think about the stories what are the oldest stories that we know? The stories of the Bible, of the 5,000 years. 5,000 years. We're talking about my grandfather's grandfather my grandfather lived to 100. Let's say his grandfather lived to 100. And then, so it's like 100. So we're talking like what, 200 years, maybe it's 250 years, somewhere in that range. We got to go like all 200 years. I don't know anything about 200 years ago because these stories weren't able to be told or documented or passed down. And I want to live my life that tells a story or multiple stories like the Bible. And those stories have valuable lessons that could be passed down. So that way, if I'm going to be someone else's grandfather's grandfather, I won't be here. But what are the stories and the lessons that could be passed down, that could be remembered, that could be told, just how I live my life? And I think about for you, if you're listening to this, or if somebody is running a business and they're distracted by things that they deem meaningful in that moment, but are really meaningless in the grand scheme of things, how could I do my part to inspire them to say, hey, at some point in time, you're either going to be forgotten or your stories are going to be told. And I highly recommend you to document your stories and live a life that tells a story with lessons that could stand in your family lineage or be told that can help other people. Why? It's because the human species is pretty phenomenal. We're the only ones that have conscious thought. And that's a pretty powerful gift that we've been given, to have conscious choice, to have conscious thoughts. And I believe that we should use that gift as often as possible in the best ways possible to serve humanity. And I believe that's what I wanted to say. I believe that captures what I wanted to say for this recording of this podcast. So right now, as I welcome our daughter Ella into the world, as James will be turning 3 on New Year's Eve, I record this on December 13th, 2023. My invitation would be for anybody who is still listening is to question, if you died tomorrow, what would you want to be known by those who follow you? What is the intentionality that you would want to bring to the moments, to be present today, while also making sure the stories of your past are being told and shared, lessons are drawn out from them that could teach others, that if you are running a business, that your business is being a force for good? How could you make sure that your time is not tied to the business, that your time is tied to your purpose, and your business is merely a vehicle to help you live that purpose? Maybe that vehicle is something that helps you make money, so you can use that money to live your purpose. You could use maybe that business as a vehicle to help a certain avatar that you are called to help. Maybe that business is a vehicle to solve a problem that others have, that only you and your business and your genius has the ability to solve in your own uniqueness. Just level up on that. And what I love about Better Than Rich and what Andrew Biggs and I are doing is we're helping busy thought leaders get their time back, leveraging AI, leveraging virtual assistants, providing other people jobs all around the world, and giving busy entrepreneurs and family people that want to be the patriarchs of their home, or the matriarchs of their home. I think that's the word. I'm sorry, forgive me if I don't know if that's the right word, matriarch. We'll go with it. But I want to give these people the ability to choose as well. I don't want them to be a slave to their business. I don't want them to quit a 9-to-5 to only work 24/7, that their boss that used to be the boss of a company is now their client, is now their new boss, and they're constantly in demand. I don't want that for you anymore. So if you want to be freed from that, join our community. We would love to coach you, guide you, support you. We have virtual assistant services that can help you get some time back, that are all informed with AI. We can help you with our community and operator to owner. We have education pillars in there, curriculum that you could just go step by step and follow in order to help you build a machine and a system of a business to help you get your time freedom. We have our owner circle, which is our highest tiered offer where you get like private coaching with myself and Andrew. We have summits every quarter. We have an annual retreat. So lots of really cool perks for that community. But either way, we're excited to serve. So thank you for taking the time to listen of what this episode means to be better than rich for me. And maybe it stirs up some things for you to help you consider what it means to be better than rich for you. So thanks for joining in. I appreciate you. And till next week, as always, leave today better than you found it. Cheers.